Who would have ever thought it would come to this? Yes, gang, it happened. The CNN headquarters in Atlanta gets attacked by rioters, smashing windows, detonating explosive devices, and defacing the company's iconic logo sign just outside the building. In this video, we're going to take a look at what's happening at the CNN building and how it ironically was the logical outworking of the very leftist liberal fake news CNN spews out every single day. You are not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Wonderful to be with you as always. I hope you're having a lovely weekend. If you're brand new to this channel, we post 2 videos a day analyzing current events and analyze some super awesome conservative trends so that you can live in the present in light of even better things to come. We help you to think better so you can feel better. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button and get encouraged with each and every video and the myriad of ways in which left-wing globalism is indeed collapsing and a new conservative age is rising. Now, before we get into things, if you are looking for a hopeful alternative to all the fake news that's being spewed out there on a daily basis from the leftist likes of CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times, you're going to find no better antidote than what's in the pages of my book, The Return of Christendom. Now, don't take my word for it here. Just read through the reviews on Amazon, over 150 of them, and you'll see for yourself how this book cuts through all the cynicism and despair that we so often feel living in this crazy globalist world. And what it's going to do is it's going to inspire you, and it's going to give you the hope you need to look at the world in a whole new light. And page after page, I give you all the data and statistics and indicators that show nothing less than a new conservative Christian majority rising throughout the United States and Europe. And it's already transforming the world map into a more nationalist, populist, and traditionalist world. And if you click on that link below right now, we're offering it for a limited time at a 50% discount. That's right, you get half off, so do not wait. There's a limited time offer. Click on that link and get your book at a super discount today and arm yourself with the information you need to crush fake news once and for all. Speaking of crushing fake news, the CNN headquarters in Atlanta was indeed attacked by rioters who smashed windows, detonated explosive devices, defaced the company's logo sign with epithets such as Black Lives Matter, F this and F that, F the police, and even someone could be heard on video screaming out F CNN. And of course, CNN was reporting live on this. And at one point, a fellow by the name of Nick Valencia was reporting from inside the CNN center as the crowds were smashing the windows there. And all of a sudden, some kind of explosive device, smoke grenade, it was thrown inside the building at police by the protesters. It was a pretty tense moment for sure, caught live. And it served in many respects as an extraordinary symbol of what's really going on with these riots, of what's really happening, and has very little to do with what CNN is so-called reporting. Now, we talked about this on yesterday's video on the riots, and of course, again, that's what they are. They are not protests, as CNN is pushing it. Protests are public expressions of dissent towards an idea or action typically taken in the political arena. Protests are fully protected under the rule of law. These are not protests. What's going on here in cities around the nation as we speak are full-blown riots. They are violent disorders that are destroying and looting businesses. They're destroying properties, communities, neighbors. And now, as it turns out, ironically, the CNN global headquarters building in Atlanta, that's being destroyed. And again, we simply could not have scripted the irony of this whole situation more accurately if we made this up ourselves. CNN, along with MSNBC, New York Times, and others, has been the single most supportive advocate for these riots in the entire nation. We played clips of the mainstream media in yesterday's video, declaring that these riots were the justifiable expression of the pent-up rage of inner-city blacks living under oppressive white supremacist political, economic, and judicial system. That's what these so-called protests are. They're the perfectly justifiable backlash against an overtly racist system. And as we pointed out in yesterday's video, what we have to get here is that the leftist liberals that comprise today's mainstream media, what we like to call on this channel the Marxist media, these leftist activists disguised as journalists are now openly advocating violence. Our ruling class, our class of professional rulers, of which the mainstream media is the communication propaganda wing, are openly advocating violence. And the key here is that violence is justified if politically correct norms have been violated, right? What we're getting from our mainstream media, our Marxist media, what they are teaching the dwindling audience that still actually listens to them, is that if politically correct norms have been violated, so we're talking, acts of racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, and the like, whatever it happens to be, if politically correct norms have been violated, then violence in response to such a violation is absolutely justified. Do you remember the Serena Williams meltdown at the U.S. Open a couple of years back, the tennis star Serena Williams? It was the women's final at the U.S. Open, and Williams had a total meltdown. She had a complete temper tantrum, and the umpire penalized her, and she completely unraveled and started calling him all kinds of names. It was pretty brutal. It was verbally violent. And of course, she went on to lose the match. And to justify what she did, do you remember this? She defended her temper tantrum and her threats by claiming that she was valiantly fighting for women's equality. Do you remember that? At her press conference, Williams said that she was fighting for women's rights out there on the court and women's equality, and that the umpire would never have treated a male tennis player the way he treated her. And the press room broke out in applause for her. I want that to hit you. She had a freaking temper tantrum that involved verbal violence towards an officiating referee. But as long as she was hysterical for women's equality, as long as she was defending herself against a supposed violation of politically correct norms, then such verbal violence not only could be applauded, it ought to be applauded. And so liberal after liberal after liberal lined up and championed her. The former tennis great Billie Jean King immediately rushed to Serena's defense, tweeting out that it's blatantly obvious that men are treated differently than women in professional tennis. Ellen DeGeneres came out and proclaimed that Serena Williams changed the world for the better. As long as you're standing up for politically correct values, as long as you're standing against inequalities, racism, bigotry, homophobia, you are allowed to be as hysterical and insane and frankly violent as you want. Think of Chris Cuomo, right? Think of Chris Cuomo. Chris Cuomo of CNN. Do you remember the Fredo incident, right? Cuomo is a flagrant left-wing globalist advocate, and he honestly believed that he could justify his radically verbally violent assault on this guy who called him Fredo. He believed he could justify that by claiming that Fredo is to an Italian is like the N-word. I mean, think about that. I just want you to... Now, of course, everyone mocked it because we don't believe in political correctness anymore. More people are being red-pilled over this entire riot situation going all across the United States. They're not sympathetic towards it like CNN. They're getting red-pilled. They're like, this is insane. Stop these looters and thugs and the like. But if you recall, Chris Cuomo justified his temper tantrum by claiming that calling an Italian Fredo is equivalent to the N-word. Cuomo's blatant violence was actually justified by his network, CNN and others, because they believe violence is appropriate if politically norms have been violated. So this is what we have to understand what's going on here. Cultural Marxist leftist liberalism is inherently violent. If you or anyone transgress its norms, you can legitimately be threatened. You could be canceled. You could be deplatformed. You could be censored, right? And we're finding your business can be legitimately looted. Your city can be burned down. And yes, you can be personally assaulted. It was justified. This is precisely what Antifa embodies. Antifa is the justified violence of the left. But getting back specifically to the attack on the CNN building, here's the irony in all this. You ready for this? I think you're going to get a kick out of this. In attacking the CNN building, these rioters are attacking the single most devoted advocate of what they're doing, right? Think about that. Think about the irony of faithfully portraying these vandals and rioters, these thugs, as mere protesters against racial inequality, only to become the victim of their violence. And this is where I think the whole notion of self-immolation comes in. Okay, we talked about this a bit on yesterday's video, but we can bring this into higher resolution. It's widely recognized that self-immolation, publicly burning oneself, right, or going on a hunger strike, the act of publicly killing oneself for political or religious reasons, it's widely recognized as the single most extreme form of what? Of protest. Self-immolation, which is a public act of self-destruction, is widely considered the most extreme form of protest. Now, you talk about the irony of ironies. Here's CNN constantly and sympathetically portraying these rioters as protesters, and it's only when they turn on CNN and begin destroying CNN's headquarters that they actually become the very protesters that CNN designated them as, by killing their greatest advocate. Not to mention destroying their own cities and their own neighborhoods and their own businesses. Self-immolation, right? These riots turn into acts of self-immolation and therefore become the most extreme form of protest, thus fulfilling CNN's portrayal. How ironic that CNN had to itself become a victim of violence in order for its fake news to become true. Chew on that all day, shall we? Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out that video I had just uploaded on the CNN reporter getting arrested on live television and how all of this is really nothing less than demonstrating the self-destructive tendencies of left-wing liberalism. I think it's going to make your day. So make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.